The arena floor was stained with blood that wasn't hers. Captain Alara Voss stood in the center of the combat pit, chest rising and falling with measured breaths. Around her lay 7 Krath warriors, each one a seasoned predator from a species that had conquered 12 star systems, before humanity had even achieved faster-than-light travel. Their chitinous armor was cracked, their weapons scattered across the sand like broken toys. Above the pit, in the observation galleries carved into black stone, thousands of alien eyes watched in absolute silence. The Krath were apex predators. Their empire had been built on the bones of lesser species, their military doctrine refined through 10,000 years of warfare. They stood 8 feet tall, possessed 4 arms tipped with natural blades, and their reflexes were fast enough to snatch plasma bolts from the air. When humanity had refused to surrender their colony worlds, the Krath had laughed. When humanity had sent soldiers, the Krath had been amused. They weren't laughing anymore. Alara rolled her shoulders, feeling the ache in muscles pushed beyond their limits. Her uniform was torn, revealing the patchwork of scars that mapped her 20 years of service. Blood, some hers, most not, dripped from her knuckles. She had requested no weapons for this trial by combat. The Krath had thought it suicide. Now they understood it had been a statement. In the front row of the gallery, Warlord Kraxus leaned forward, his 4 eyes fixed on the human female who had just dismantled his best warriors with nothing but her bare hands and a tactical mind that had turned their every advantage against them. His translator implant struggled to process the cognitive dissonance of what he was witnessing. "Impossible," he growled. "Humans are weak, soft. They have no claws, no armor, no instinct for the kill." Beside him, his advisors remained silent. What could they say? The evidence bled on the sand below. In the back of the gallery, pressed against his mother's leg, young cub Rintal watched with wide, unblinking eyes. He was barely 3 cycles old, still learning the ways of his people, still being taught that Krath were the supreme hunters of the galaxy. But what he saw in the arena didn't match what the elders taught. Alara looked up at the galleries, meeting Kraxus's gaze across the distance. She didn't smile, didn't gloat. Her expression was the same calm, cold assessment she'd worn throughout the entire fight, the look of a professional doing an unpleasant job. "Your warriors fought with honor," she said, her voice amplified by the arena systems. "But you made a mistake." "What mistake?" Kraxus snarled. "We gave you every disadvantage." "Yes," Alara agreed. "You gave me exactly what I needed. You see, Warlord, your species evolved to be apex predators on a world where being the strongest, the fastest, the most aggressive meant survival. You became perfect hunters." She began to walk, circling the fallen warriors, and every eye in the gallery tracked her movement. "Humans didn't evolve that way. We were never the apex predator of Earth. We were prey, slow, weak, soft, like you said. Do you know what happens to prey that survives? It doesn't survive by being stronger. It survives by being smarter, by enduring, by refusing to die even when everything logical says it should." Alara stopped, standing over the largest of the fallen Krath. "Your warriors were stronger than me, faster, better armed. They should have won. But I studied them. I learned their patterns. I used their aggression against them, turned their strength into momentum I could redirect. And when they tired, because strength always tires, I was still standing. Because humans don't just fight, we outlast." The silence in the gallery was absolute. "You wanted to test if humans deserved a seat at the galactic table," Alara continued. "You wanted to see if we were worthy to negotiate as equals. So I showed you what humanity is. We're not the strongest. We're not the fastest. But we're the species that looked at every predator on our world and decided we'd survive anyway. We're the species that turned persistence into an art form. We're the ones who never stop coming." She looked up at Kraxus again. "So here's my question, Warlord. Do you want us as enemies? Or do you want us as allies?" The weight of that question hung in the air like a blade. It was then that cub Rintal, who had been silent throughout the entire trial, tugged on his mother's arm. His small voice carried in the stillness, amplified by the gallery's acoustics and the profound quiet. "Mother," he whispered, loud enough for those nearby to hear, "why is the apex wearing human skin?" His mother's hand clamped over his mouth, but it was too late. The words rippled through the gallery like a shockwave. Heads turned. Eyes widened. Because the cub had spoken the truth that every adult in the room had been trying to deny. They had been watching an apex predator. Not in spite of the human form, but because of what that form represented. A species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain through sheer bloody-minded refusal to be prey. A species that had turned vulnerability into victory through intelligence, endurance, and an almost psychotic determination to survive. Warlord Craxus stared at the human captain, and for the first time in his long career, he felt something he'd never experienced in combat before. Not fear. Not quite respect, and underneath that, the smallest seed of doubt about everything he'd believed about the natural order of the universe. Alara smiled then. Not a warm smile, but the smile of a predator that had just proven its place in the hierarchy. She turned and walked toward the arena exit, leaving 7 fallen warriors and 1,000 shocked aliens in her wake. Behind her, she heard Craxus's voice boom across the gallery. Release her, and prepare the treaty documents. We negotiate as equals. As Alara disappeared into the corridor, she allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. Humanity had passed another test. Not through superior firepower or technological advantage, but by doing what humans had always done best: surviving, adapting, and reminding the universe that apex predators don't need claws when they have something far more dangerous. They have will, and humanity's will was unbreakable.